enough people that at least need an introduction at this conference as a conference veteran and key member of this community. So without further ado, please take it away.
Thank you. Just as prelude to my presentation, I want to mention that the first thing I saw when I arrived yesterday in the morning, and I'm not a morning person, unless it's like 4 a.m. and I haven't gone to bed yet, was that in the exhibition, both of my semi-abstract paintings of unblasted towers had been hung upside down, which in another context might have been slightly annoying, but in this one it was hilarious and appropriate, and I thought, okay, it's working already. But I also took it as a warning, so I'm not going to use any tech. I brought effects pedals for my violin and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not going to use a mic or any tech, except for my laptop for notes, which hopefully won't crash like a tower. But without further ado,
Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes Trismegistus, thrice greatest Hermes, thrice greatest Hermes, thrice greatest Hermes. Herald of the dawn, bringer of the morn, bridger of the dusk, herald of the night, father of goat-hoofed lust, lithe one of light, silver-tongued one, swift-pinioned one, undone one, fleet-footed one, eloquent one, arbitrary one. Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes Trismegistus. God of the in-between, seer of celestial choir, ear of the vision, arbiter of division, messenger of angels, arbiter of angles, emissary of the mysteries, messenger of deities, amorous one, androgynous 2, ambiguous 3, oh manifold, multifarious, infinite one, infinite me. Esezuzus, Esezuzus, Esezuzus. This is a new word I've found, meaning new words, meaning new flesh formed from new words, new tongues. For the word language comes from the French langue, which actually means tongue, the organ, rather than just speaking in tongues, speaking with tongues. For language was once embodied and has gradually degenerated into something more abstract, not so vibrational, and yet the vibrations are still there intrinsically. The ecstasy of new tongues becoming flesh. The organ, the tongue is the organ of the word. The serpent winds its way through time, through the mythologies of many peoples, usually in most ancient mythos, as a symbol of time, of creation, and of the Kundalini, fire energy within us all. And yet, to the Christians, it represents deceit, trickery, and the forked tongue of the serpent seems to relate to this dualistic, linguistic division, the fragmentation of the one tongue into the forked tongue, into the many tongues. And yet serpents themselves, from which this metaphor comes, do not use their tongues to speak. No, they use them merely as organs of vibration. Snakes flicker their tongues when wiggling along to sense their environment. They use them as vibratory sensors of where they are and where they're going and what they're doing and what's coming and what's around them. Their tongues are organs of pure vibration. So, on a metaphorical level, it is actually humans who speak with forked tongues. So bring it up. This wouldn't, yeah, but it will be for as soon as we begin to speak with this abstracted idea of language, expressing particular intellectual concepts, we forget sometimes about the vibrational aspects of language, tonguage. And not our tongue, but the things that therefrom sprung begin to wind and wane into division and fragmentation and misunderstandings. Representative of this fragmentation is the myth of the Tower of Babel, the Tower of Babel, the Tower, so but standard Babylon, apparently once upon a time there was one tongue in ancient times, and in these times people at the beginning of civilization, so-called, began to build a tower, a great tower, spiraling up to the very heavens. The aim of this ambitious project, apparently, was to try and reach the heavens, to get closer to God, to speak with the very heavens. And so the tower grew higher and higher and higher. And of course, that was the birth of hierarchy. For the people up near the top of the tower soon lost direct communication with the bottom of the tower, because they didn't want to come down all those spiraling steps all the time to directly communicate their messages. So they sent down messengers, and they sent down so the people at the bottom of the tower, who were the ones doing most of the work, bringing the food and stuff from outside and the things that the people in the top needed, began, after a while, they were getting these, after they were king and they couldn't and the people from the top said to the people in the bottom of the spits, but as the and something seemed to be a bit askew, a bit astray. Messages got confused. Misinformation began to be bred through the different layers of the tower and the surrounding villages. And the sneers, and the blood suddenly And so they sent an archer up to the top of the tower to fire an arrow into the heavens to reach divinity, as they kept building this great, ambitious tower of civilization, this just of course, eventually God got sick of this confusion and threw a great bolt of lightning down to the tower. And apparently, this was the beginning of different languages. This was where the one tongue split into the many tongues. And as the people and the civilizations and the buildings and the towers and the cities spread across the earth, settled into new places, everyone began to speak differently, in different ways, in different places, according to the natures of those places, according to the different voices of the animals and the trees in those different places, and of the land itself, and of the very and when they it's odd, any tale that comes from the Bible, you really have to look at it on many layers, because it's like this Bible's full of Babel, and they have this central concept of the serpent being evil with its forked tongue, and yet something makes me think it's actually the humans speaking the words, translating the tales, rather than the serpents that merely slither and vibrate, that are actually perverting these messages from above to below, from below to above. And yet, is it not beautiful, this diversity of language? What is with this myth that this is some kind of bad thing, that this one tongue turn into many? I mean, when we spread across the earth, surely we're going to adapt and adjust to the different places, and that's part of the diversity of culture and of people and of places. How can we speak one tongue? And would we really want to? I mean, now that civilization is linked up all over the planet like never before, with the internet, with telecommunications, with rapid transport, it seems like it's actually possible for us to actually all speak one tongue. Maybe everyone should speak English. But to me, that's just like some banal monoculture. It's not actually unity, is it? It's not actually one tongue. It's like, well, if it is, it's enforced. It doesn't seem natural. Surely the diversity of language is part of the diversity of culture, of very form. Having grown up on the huge monocultural island of Australia and recently moved to Central Europe, I'm constantly amazed by the richness of the diversity of language and of the cultures and how entwined they are. I mean, I'm in this teeny little country called Belgium, and then next door you have, which has two main languages, and most people speak several others. And then next door we have Luxembourg, which is smaller than London and has its own language that's kind of like a blend between French and German. And then just the city of Strasbourg in France, near the border of Germany, has a dialect which is also a blend of German and French, but a different one. And it's just insane, all these these different dialects and languages all in this little space. And you can see how it could really cause a lot of confusion and a lot of misunderstanding, but I think the nature of the language itself, even if everyone spoke the same language, like, people misunderstand each other all the time anyway. And so it's like, is speaking one tongue really the answer? Or is that all just part of some strange idea of, you know, a monoculture spreading across the earth? And yet there is something in this tale of the fragmentation of language, the breakdown of communications between the different layers of civilization. Do people know about the game of Chinese whispers?
Yeah.
Yeah, where you whisper something in someone's ear and pass it on to another person, pass it on to another person. I think it's that conveying of information. That's where the messages sometimes get lost. I tried once playing Chinese whispers, or more like Swahili whispers or something, with Google Translate as an experiment. I wish I still had the transcript of that to share, but it actually got lost in a computer crash a decade or so ago. But the basis of it was I wrote a very brief summary in a paragraph or so of the Tower of Babel story and the fragmentation of language, and I then translated it from English into Spanish, from Spanish into Zulu, from Zulu into Chinese, and so forth, through about 8 different languages, you know, as diverse as I could. And then at the end, back into English, see how it came out. The essence of it was still there intact, the basis of the story, of the fragmentation of language with the collapse of the tower, and, well, the building of the tower in the first place, and with it getting so high. However, there was one, of course the language was a bit strange and stilted, but that message was still in there after translating it through these 8 different languages. But there was one added nuance that I hadn't put in the original thing, and that was something along the lines of, the division of language is a good reason for war. I hadn't said anything about war in the original piece, so it was like really interesting self-referential experiment. So yeah, I think that language can create chaos, and chaos can be good, can be bad, but I don't think monoculture is the answer. I think more we have to find the language beneath all the languages, behind all the languages. Not forget about the pure vibrational language. Like, I mean, when traveling and you don't understand somebody, you can try and talk in your language and they're trying to talk in their language, and you're just stuck with this thing, like, where you can't understand each other, and then sometimes you stop and go, hang on, and then you like do little signs and make little stuff, and I don't think we should forget that. We shouldn't get lost in these mental games that we play with all these divisions of language and ideas and concepts and intellectual constructs, and forget that language is vibrational, that it comes from, oh, this thing feels like a okay, it's a well, this thing is a oh, this it's a it's a yeah, and so on and so forth through the generations and different places. We shouldn't forget about how things feel and how that is the basis of language, and of magical language. How something is vibrated, how it feels, rather than just what meaning it has. The song that I'm going to finish with about the Tower of Babel has a reference I want to explain. I'm not much into the Kabbalah blah in recent years, but I was when I wrote the song a decade or so more ago. And
I found a very interesting crossroads on the Tree of Life, where you've got the Tower path and the Art or Temperance path intersect each other. And one way the spheres that those paths connect are 6 and 9, the Tiferet and Yesod, it's the sun and the moon, so that's like the alchemical marriage on that path. And the other way, it's Hod and Neptak, which are Venus and Mercury, Hermes and Aphrodite, hermaphrodite, so you also have a kind of alchemical marriage there. So this crossroads of art and the tower is a kind of alchemical marriage between opposites, represented by masculine and feminine energies. It's where these places meet and intersect and cross, and in both directions, horizontally and vertically, it also adds up to 15. 6 and 9 is 15, but also 8 and 7. And so 15 is like the devil card, or Baphomet. So it's a very interesting kind of crossroads on the tree, I think. And of course, one of those paths being the tower, it's very relevant, I think, to the themes here. And the fact that that path intersects with temperance, I think is key, because it's like order and chaos. Art, alchemy, temperance, it's like getting the right amount of that and the right amount of this, not having too much, just balancing things. Yet the tower is like the opposite of that in a way. It's just like those uncontrollable things that just have to break through, just that chaos and unexpected change. And it's like both are what shapes reality, surely, that kind of considered, ordered balancing and juggling of elements and that unpredictable thing of life.
Everyone. The archer climbed to the top of the tower and fired into the heavens the arrow of art. The tower top post crashed. The flower opens as it blossomed from the Thank you.